I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is
Bond.
I'm
Batman.
name's Bond.
James Bond.
I'm Batman.
Bond. James Bond.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
This is the Batman vs. James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. The name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, and I am your host. And this is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It is great to be back. I hope you all had a great week. I know I did. It was a hectic, kind of short week for me. Lots of little things going on here and there. I know you don't want to hear about it, but I did just get back from Philadelphia, and I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of give a quick shout out up there. I've never. Well, that's a lie. I have traveled to Philadelphia back when all the way in fifth grade. And when I went up there, the typical kind of fifth grade trip, you see the historic parts of Philly and so forth. Beautiful city. Very historic stuff up there. Definitely something to check out if you've never been. And then I made it over this area called Valley Forge, and it's kind of like a war grounds, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I didn't see Valley Forge this time, but I ended up being sidetracked with my wife to a mall up there. And in this mall, of course, there's stores, all kinds of stores, your typical stuff, and something that caught my eye, and I look over and I'm like, wait, that's a familiar face over there. And guess what it was? And if you haven't checked out my Instagram, quick plug, Batman vs. Bond on Instagram, and happened to see a familiar face, and yeah, it happened to be Mr. Batman, Mr. Bruce Wayne, and Clark Kent, Kal-El, Superman. They're standing over there together, and it's at the store, and it's called UncannyOnline.com. Give them a free shout out there. It's UncannyOnline.com. And what they are is pretty much, it's just like a comic book store. It's more than a comic book store. It had a whole bunch of superhero stuff, memorabilia in there. I mean, it had your typical t-shirts, hoodies, and action figures and all kinds of stuff. Of course, I was the guy employee in there asked me, he's like, "Oh, can I help you with anything, sir?" I'm like, "Just a minute." I'm like a kid in a candy store. I was like, it's like being at Comic-Con almost all over again, because there was all this really cool stuff there. And of course, I bought something, and it happened to be this little Batman t-shirt, whatever, just add to my collection there. But yeah, I had a great time up there, and that was just icing on the cake to end off the trip up there. But just wanted to give them a shout out. If you're ever up in there, that Philadelphia area, definitely go check that out, or check out their website, UncannyOnline.com, and I'm sure they could probably ship something out to you if you buy something online. Anyway, back to business. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the Batman vs. James Bond show on Spreaker and iTunes. Leave a nice little review for me on there. I know if you are a regular listener, then you have no excuse but to go on there. Just, it takes not even 60 seconds. Just search for it on Spreaker, search for it on iTunes, click 5 stars, and then leave a comment, leave a smiley face. I don't care. Just show me something, some kind of proof out there that you are listening. And as always, I thank you. So another thing I always like to mention on here is that, before we even get started, is that I am not a movie critic. So I know there's a lot of new listeners out there, and welcome to you. I'm not a movie critic. I'm not a writer for a movie site. I'm a fanboy. At least I like to consider myself a fanboy. I'm just a guy who is obsessed with Batman and James Bond. That's why I put this together. So having said that, let's start off with some news and stories from the week. So kicking it off here is a story that comes kind of as no surprise to me. Some of the fans out there will be a little disappointed. For me, I'm just okay, well, this is great. I kind of saw this coming a mile away. So Suicide Squad is less than, I think it's under 50 days away, last time I checked. And I'm sorry, I don't have the countdown off the top of my head, but it has been confirmed by the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA, that David Ayer's Suicide Squad film will be rated PG-13. Now, why is it going to be rated PG-13? Well, it's for sequences of violence, action throughout, disturbing behavior, and suggestive content and language. Well, let me just say this. Judging by the trailers, I can tell you it's going to be a very hard PG-13, and I bet you if knowing David Ayer, and for those of you that don't know that name, one, go see Training Day. I heard the movie Fury's really good. He directed End of Watch. he's known for those rated R movies, and Training Day is by far I would consider a hard rated R movie. And, for him to do something like a PG-13, I'm sure there probably will be, especially now that we know that an Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman rated R edition is on its way in less than a couple weeks, actually. So it's not going to be a surprise to me also if David Ayer does have a rated R cut of this film. I would be very interested to see it. The violence, we've seen this with, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, just how the DC universe is treating this. They want to be able to still get, everybody in there. It's probably not going to be a movie that you can take a little kid to unless they're, they have a parent there. I know when I saw the first Batman movie, my parents were right there with me, but they were the type that they would watch the movie, I think, secretively before I even had a chance to watch it. So, it's not like I could go watch any kind of rated R movie, but even at the time, the Batman movies are very, very strict PG-13. The Joker, just going back to, say, The Dark Knight, just like, let me show you a pencil trick, and, ta-da, it's gone. Stuff like that. And, Batman dropping the guy off, it was Eric Roberts. He dropped Carmine Falcone off the ledge, off the building, and he obviously it didn't kill him. It just like literally you hear that crack in his leg, and it's like, wow, okay, that's going pretty far there. And everything we've seen in Batman v Superman, we know that that could have been a rated R movie. Batman killing people, running them over, and so forth. So this is no surprise. Obviously, the Joker is the Joker. We've seen the Joker do lots of killing before. That's why, I think a lot of fans, and we'll talk about this later, the Killing Joke, it's interesting that they are going to have a rated R, or an R rating, should I say, for a cartoon movie. And I'm not saying, obviously, that's never happened before, but in the case of a Batman movie, that has never happened before, especially in the animated universe. So, it's obviously, they know what they're doing over there. We fingers are crossed that Warner Brothers knows what they're doing with this, and it's no surprise. So we will see what we will see. No, you don't get to see any kind of how do I say this? Any kind of shots of Harley Quinn. Yes, you will get to see her scantily clad in there. No, you won't get to see a money shot of Will Smith putting on his armor or anything like that. Yes, I said armor. What I meant to say is his costume. I'm sure, people would love to see, or the ladies would love to see a shower scene with Will Smith just getting, all cleaned up and gearing up before he starts doing his thing. But nope, it's not going to happen. But what is going to happen is Suicide Squad is set to dominate Comic-Con 2016. Now, we talked about it last week. Comic-Cons are all over the place. I tweeted out the link to all the Comic-Cons, so hopefully you can try to get out to one in your area. I know that, like I said, I'm trying to get out to at least I think I'm trying to get to Baltimore Comic-Con. That's in September. I think tickets are maybe $25, $30. It's pretty cheap, all things considered. Try to get out there, support your local vendors. Try to get out there and see if there's a celebrity out there. Try to say hi to them, get their autograph, get a picture taken, or if you're into cosplay, such as I am, then get out there, put on your best costume, and then just live it up. Now, one Comic-Con that I'm definitely not going to be able to go to is San Diego Comic-Con. This is like the godfather of Comic-Cons, and actually, at least I consider it to be, just because it's, as soon as the tickets go on sale for this, they're gone. They literally are gone. And the venues, I always hear on the news that, it's the space that they have at the convention center, whatever it's called for San Diego Comic-Con, it's limited. You've had, going off track here, you've had like studios such as Marvel Studios, you've had even Fox saying, hey, I'm not going to go. And, it's a wonder that, this thing with Comic-Con, it's obviously called Comic-Con. It's not like a place where, movies and so forth were meant to be released. It's just that they kind of fell into that category, and now a studio feels that they can take a movie such as, and it's great promotion because the diehard fanboys, and you can be any kind of fanboy. If you're a fanboy such as myself, you love the movies. You might not be as into the comics. I respect the comics. My problem is that at the end of the day, that I'm so tired of reading because of work or whatever, and I end up playing on my cell phone, and I'd rather watch a quick movie clip, or I'd rather watch a trailer over and over again than sit down and watch a comic. That's lazy. But, so bringing it back here with San Diego Comic-Con and Suicide Squad, it's no secret that movie studios love to bring their movies, and especially when they're just about to come out, or coming out like maybe even a year in advance, such as Batman v Superman, and promote them. And, with San Diego Comic-Con, I still consider this like the golden ticket. If you can get in there, then, and you can get into, I think it's Hall H, I believe it is, where they promote like, they have like the big celebrities out there, or the directors, and they're showing like the exclusive trailers that only you can see at this, or an exclusive clip. I mean, they end up being leaked on YouTube, which really, really sucks, because for the people that do get to go out there, that's such a treat. I mean, like I said, it's like going into the Willy Wonka factory and you try that piece of candy, and all of a sudden that candy gets leaked, but it wasn't worth it. I mean, it was worth it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so what I'm going with this is that it has been announced that DC Entertainment and Warner Brothers Pictures are going to have a major presence for Suicide Squad at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. So what does that mean? Well, what they're saying right now is that at Hall H, where they're going to, they do their, like I said, they do their usual presentation there. DC Entertainment, last year it was David Ayer and the whole cast of Suicide Squad, and they're like, yeah, we got a great trailer for you. This is going to be the best, one of the best comic book movies ever, something to that extent. And they released the first look at Suicide Squad, and it was amazing. And I mean, like I said, I obviously couldn't be there, but I'm one of the many that, go online and try to find the leaked trailer and the leaked footage. But the cool thing this year is they're going to be doing even more. They're going all out for this movie. Right now for Warner Brothers, it's going to be either show up or go home. Pretty much that's what it is. So right now, we don't know too much. Warner Brothers is kind of keeping it under wraps, but they have revealed that the cast of Suicide Squad will also take part in a special taping of Conan O'Brien's TBS show on Saturday, July 25th, to be broadcast later that evening, as well as making an appearance at the DC Entertainment booth on the convention floor that day to sign for fans. What a treat that's going to be. But wait, there's more. Additionally, part of the Hard Rock Hotel in the city's Gaslamp Quarter will be transformed into Belle Reve Penitentiary, the fictional prison that houses the supervillains who make up the squad, featuring another Harley Quinn tattoo parlor and a virtual reality experience that allows fans to fight alongside the squad themselves in a scene from the movie. DC has also launched a fan contest called Squad Up Thursday that invites fans to create a cosplay based on the movie's protagonist, with 11 different winners, one from each member of the team, as well as the Joker, being given an all-expenses-paid trip to Comic-Con next month. San Diego Comic-Con is going to be running from July 21st through the 24th. Holy crap, what I would do to be there right during that time. Oh, man. It's too bad I dressed up as Batman, because... yeah, that would be really cool. I can't wait to see. I mean, we were talking about it last week with the cosplay and just the how many people are starting to do this, or they were already out there to begin with, but the detail that they go into making their costumes, and I have so much respect for them. But having a contest like that. So before we even go into this, it's what I was talking about. Like the studios promoting the movie, and this is way more than at least I remember with the last movie for Batman v Superman, just how they promoted that. I mean, yeah, sure, they promoted that almost 2 years in advance, but this is quite the push at very last minute. Stories have been coming out, and we've talked about it before, about how they're going to end up doing, or they've done reshoots, and people were questioning about that. Reshoots happen all the time. It's no secret. So for any kind of movie, and, until a movie is finally put out in theaters, then they're editing it, at least I believe, and from what I understand, that the director and whomever else is editing it till the very last minute to make sure that they can have the best product that they can put out there. And I'm sure that they're still going back right now and rewatching Suicide Squad over and over. How can we make this the best that we can? So, going on with this, for anybody who can get that golden ticket to Hall H, I think you're in for a real treat. Even if you can make it to Comic-Con and you can be on the floor and try to get a signature from Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Jared Leto. I mean, I just, my mind is blown right about now. As you can say, I'm pretty giddy about this. For the fan contest, I'll make sure that I post this up on Twitter and Facebook so you guys can have a chance to take a look at this. And let's keep on moving on here. So, going back to Batman v Superman. So about a week ago, the cinematographer, and if you're not familiar with this name, it's okay. His name is Larry Fong. He was the cinematographer for Batman v Superman. He's also worked with Zack Snyder and a couple other projects before. I think he actually did 300, if I'm not mistaken. And so he went on Twitter, and he was all this talk about the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, rated R, and, people are either really excited about this, people either fall into the middle ground. Well, if it helps the movie, then that's great. Obviously, that's where I fall into that, but I'm still kind of excited. And then you have the haters that are saying, oh, well, they should have got it right the first time, and long live a company that starts with an M. Like, you jerks. But that's okay. That's another fight for another day. Anyway, Larry Fong made this comment on Twitter saying, those of you that are fans will dig it. If you hated it, you will still hate it. And I can only imagine what Warner Brothers said when he posted this on Twitter. And if I'm a company man, then I'm not going to be going out there just saying, oh, well, it might be good, but, I would, if I were the boss of that studio right now, I'd be, either I'd be chewing his ass out right about now. I'd be, taking away his Christmas bonus. I'd be doing whatever I could. I'd be taking away his parking spot at the studio. Why, oh why would you say that about a movie when you're trying to hype it when it didn't do so well in theaters? You want to hype it. You want to make sure that you spread the word. I mean, the internet is the word of mouth of all. I mean, it really is. I mean, you post something on the internet. If I post on there right now, Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition is the greatest thing ever, I might get a few responses on there. Maybe. I might get a few likes. If I'm a cinematographer for a movie such as Warner Brothers' Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and I tweet that out, my God, how many people are going to see that, and imagine the reactions that happen to that. So, yeah, I don't know what to think about that. But it gets better. So a week has passed since he made that comment, since we last recorded. And then he went back on Twitter and he tweeted this out. Watch the Ultimate Edition again. Now believe everyone will love it. Pre-order today. # Batman v Superman. # WB Home Entertainment. Oh, this guy. And, he was going on and he was even making some comments. He was engaging with fans on there. And somebody asked him, what was your favorite scene or character added to the Ultimate Edition? He replied, there's so much. Maybe the desert scene where more is explained. Can you say flip-flop right here? Maybe the studio, probably did something like I said. Maybe they took away his Christmas bonus. Maybe they said, yeah, I think we're going to find another guy for Justice League. No, I'm just speculating there. Still, though, I mean, for somebody to say that, I mean, even going back to when Batman v Superman, going back to before the movie was released, I remember hearing all these news stories saying, hey, the studio is like really excited about this. The studio heads just saw this movie and they stood up and they gave a round of applause and a standing ovation is what it was. There it was. And then all of a sudden, maybe a month or two later, studio is kind of nervous about what's going to happen with this movie. So you never can tell with stuff like this. I mean, but it's pretty clear that, whatever happened, somebody must have said something to him. Maybe it was Zack Snyder. Snyder's pretty big. He's a pretty buff dude. If somebody was talking, in between stuff about my movie and, I work with him, I'd probably have a side conversation with him. Maybe Ben Affleck put his Batman suit on and kind of pulled the whole prison scene from, with Lex Luthor and, threatened to just, kick his ass. I have no idea. But, it's just interesting, though, how much of a flip-flopper this guy is. And, like I said, I don't know too much of his work. I only can see with Batman v Superman. I mean, I liked how the movie was shot. And, but, for somebody to say, just change what they thought, kind of interesting to me. But, hey, it is what it is. Anyway, moving on here. We've talked about it a little bit before at the beginning of the show. Batman the Killing Joke. Now, we know this movie was set to release in August 2nd. I'm very, very anxious about this. I used to watch the Batman animated series when I was a kid. I liked it a lot, and I even watched Batman Beyond. But now the animated universe, it's something I've never gotten into, and I don't know why. I guess I've just spent so much time watching. It's because animated movies. We'll talk about this for a second. Animated movies never, I don't think, get their credit, and it's always going to be we have to have live action, and that's what sells tickets and ends up making it to the big screen. Fair enough. We've talked about comic book fans and just all different kind of fanboys that are out there and fangirls. Sorry. And, a lot of people love the animated versions. They love the animated movies so much. And I've said it before, even when I started off this show, that, that's something that I really want to get into. I want to explore. I don't want to focus just on the live action. I want to see what else is out there. As long as it's a Batman movie, I'd like to check it out, and I'd like to post a review on this, and I'd like to have some discussion with you guys. And, let me know what you think. So when I hear a Batman animated movie that is rated R and is showing one of probably the darkest stories in Batman history, I gotta say, I am intrigued by this. So now, according to a press release from Warner Brothers, Fathom Events is running special screenings in cities across the United States on Monday, July 25th. That's right. Mark your calendars. Monday, July 25th. There will be 2 showings, one at 7:30 and 10:30 local time. Tickets go on sale on Friday, June 17th. Also mark your calendars for that. I know I've already set a reminder for that. You can grab your tickets at Fathom Events, and it's going to be at participating theaters. The cool thing about this is that if you do manage to make it to the screenings for any of the features, Mark Hamill has recorded a special introduction for the fans. Later in the night, a feature on an all-new musical number led by Hamill as the Joker, which promises to be an absolutely twisted in all of its song and dance glory. The movie is going to premiere at San Diego Comic-Con as well on August 2nd. So here we go. Another, just shut up and take my money right now, because any kind of excuse I can get to obviously see a Batman movie, I'm all about. And this one, I've seen the trailers. We've briefly talked about it before, and I'm really excited to see this. And maybe this is going to be the start of if I'd like to see what ticket sales are going to be like for this. It's obviously not going to be as big as, a big, live action studio film, but if, maybe this can be the start of something different. We've seen, it's comparing apples to oranges here, but you have a rated R movie such as Deadpool with a lower budget, and look at the sales that were out there. If you can manage to, succeed with an animated rated R movie, or just an animated movie, PG-13, rated R, whatever it may be, and you can get, not just the typical fanboys out there, but you can grow a bigger audience. Just imagine, maybe this is going to be a new step for Warner Brothers and for animated movies in that case too. So having said that, it has also been a possibility that the movie Justice League Dark. Now, this we've never talked about before. It's the idea has been around for a long time. It's always been teased by Guillermo del Toro, best known for Pacific Rim, Crimson Peak, which came out last year, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, Blade 2. Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite Blade movies, and kind of connected within the Batman universe because David Ayer, who wrote all those films, he actually wrote all the Dark Knight trilogy, and he ended up helping with Man of Steel as well as Batman v Superman. Anywho, though, it's always been rumored that Guillermo del Toro, his name is attached to everything, and that he was trying to bring a Justice League Dark movie to the big screen. It's kind of died out since then. We haven't heard anything much since then. And this was in the last year or so. But it looks like DC Comics is, at least in the animated feature film, is trying to bring this back into the news, or trying to get it back to development. So, in a report from the British Board of Film Classification site, has listed a sneak peek at Justice League Dark under the bonus content for Batman the Killing Joke. So nothing's been confirmed at this point, but the idea of a Justice League Dark movie, honestly, I don't know anything about this at all, so this is where you guys come in. Please let me know what you think. Let me know. Just give me something, maybe I need to go do some research about this. That'd be probably a better idea. But I did just find the story last minute, but I figured you guys would like it. So let me know what you think. Is a Justice League Dark movie a great idea, especially in the animated universe? What do you think about animated movies in general, especially the comic book movies? Do you think that you would like to see more of these at least hit the big screen? Let me know what you think. Tweet me at Batman vs. Bond. Let me know. All right, shifting gears here. Let's talk a little bit about James Bond. Not much news has come out since the last couple weeks. Still don't know. this is what calls me. Like I said, it's like Decision 2016. Is Daniel Craig going to run for James Bond or not? We don't know. I mean, the signs are all there, and it's just I just want confirmation, as does everybody else. I know on Twitter there's like all kinds of petitions going online. Give Daniel Craig one more chance and let him be James Bond one more time. That's great. I like seeing that. I really truly do. It's not. I at least I'm in the belief that just doing a fan petition it never. I will say I'm sure it's worked before, but I think it's going to take more. And I think at the end, I think he already knows what he wants to do. It's just a matter of, okay, maybe we're just doing some last minute deal, and there is obviously more to that than just Daniel Craig, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, but. A former Bond girl, Miss Italy, Caterina Marino, who played Solange in Daniel Craig's first James Bond movie, Casino Royale, she did an interview recently in Sunday People, and she was commenting on possibly why Daniel Craig turned down all that money offer of allegedly $100 million to come back and play James Bond 2 more times. She commented, "It's hugely stressful being Bond. There's a lot of money involved, so that also brought more tension, and a lot of that tension was on Daniel. It's not easy to go back in time and time again. It can be tiring to keep trying to find new things in the same role. You study for the role, then there's 6 months of shooting. It's a tiring movie, and Daniel's not just an actor, he's a human being too." And later on in the interview, they were talking about, Craig being the most bankable Bond ever. His 4 movies have, grossed over $2 billion in the past decade. Marino said this, "After a while, those actors don't really think too much about the money." So there's another opinion about, whether, Craig did really turn this down or not. It all comes down to what I keep saying. He's tired. It's not about the money. Maybe he just, he's put everything he's got or had into those movies, and, he's done. He's ready to drive that Aston Martin off with Rachel Weisz, his actual Bond girl, his actual wife, and go find something else. And it probably is going to be the Showtime series. And if that ends up being the direction, that's cool. If not, then, I really welcome him back. So another big topic that we never really do get a chance to talk about that's going on with this whole James Bond, who's it going to be, who's going to be the next actor, is distribution rights for James Bond. And, a lot of people haven't really talked about it because, obviously the more spotlight has been put on is Daniel Craig returning or not. But a bigger one that we should be considering also, and this might have a choice in, or the reflection in the actor and especially the director, is going to be what studio is going to pick up the James Bond film rights after, Sony. So for those of you that are not familiar with this, Sony's been controlling the last 4 Bond movies since Casino Royale back in 2006. So and this has been all of Daniel Craig's movies. They've made about $3.1 billion in worldwide box office from 2006 to 2015. They do over $400 million in domestic DVD, Blu-ray revenue, and close to $1 billion in DVD, Blu-ray, digital HD sales, and rentals around the world since 2006. That's a lot of money. And just think about all the product placements that are in there. They bring in about $100 to $200 million per film. So, every time you see an Omega watch in there, anything that was Sony related, whether it's a computer, whether it's one of the Sony phones in there, the clothing, Tom Ford, everything that's in there, whether it's, Smirnoff Vodka, Finlandia, Aston Martin, that's always a good one, Land Rover, anything like that. So just think about it. This whole idea of a franchise obviously is such a big business. Now, the fact that Sony, if those of you that might not remember this, about a year or two ago, it was actually 2 years ago, that Sony was having some pretty bad problems. They had the Sony hacks. And what happened there, at least in the James Bond world, is that the script was leaked for Spectre. And that was a big, big thing for this. And it wasn't just, James Bond, but the one we'll focus on is that. So, as you can imagine, obviously, I'm sure the family, Eon Productions were not happy about this. And, a deal's a deal, an agreement's agreement. So they finish off the agreement. Now, the question is, who is going to control James Bond? Who is going to control the distribution rights for that? So up until now, it's been Sony. Now the question is, what other studio could buy it? Back in the day, it was always talk about Lionsgate. Some have said, Fox. Some have said Universal Studios. Some have said Paramount. What about Disney? Big Mouse, Little Ears. There's another one out there, and this is the one that a lot of people, or a lot of writers are predicting right now, that it could be Warner Brothers. So if you look at it right now, obviously, and this is especially falls into the Batman territory here with shared universes and franchises. For a studio right now, if you have a franchise that's successful, that's the big thing. And it's always, movies that are out. You look at everything that's happening right now. It's either a comic book movie or it's some kind of fantasy sci-fi movie. And you have to have something like that at a studio, or you're not going to be able to make money. And that's what it is. It's a business, and you have to have a successful product to make money. So obviously, James Bond is over 50 years old. It's been going strong, and it's not losing any steam, despite what some people say. Oh, he's a sexist despite what some people will say that he's a sexist, monastical dinosaur. I think that's a quote taken out of GoldenEye, something like that. Anyway, so when it comes to James Bond, a lot of people are like, well, James Bond, he's just old school. It's all about Jason Bournes. It's all about the Mission Impossible movies. It's all about whatever else. And, it's a sexist, maniacal dinosaur kind of movie, taken right out of Judi Dench's quote from GoldenEye. And I disagree with all that. I mean, James Bond is always such a great go-to. I'm not speaking as a Bond fan. I really am. But looking at it from a different perspective, the name is Bond, James Bond. You hear the number 007, and it's symbolic. It really, truly is. For a studio to have that and own the rights to that, just imagine what they could do. So with Sony, with all the problems that they had, then, it would make sense for, MGM to, go to somebody else and to pick up those rights. So, who could it go to? Maybe it go to Warner Brothers. Some will say that, oh, well, if it goes to Warner Brothers, then, what about the director of, the possibility of director Christopher Nolan? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. That, in theory, that'll be great. I mean, I've always heard that, Warner Brothers and MGM do have a good working relationship. They've worked together with the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies and a few other movies. So it could happen, but I want to just throw that out there that, don't just think about the actor that is going to take the place of Daniel Craig if Daniel Craig decides to leave. I want you to consider, I also want you guys to take into consideration, though, that it's also about the studio, because a studio can have a big say in who will play their actor of James Bond. So just because the immediate, production studio might like that, depending on who the big boss at Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal, Fox, whoever would get that, the studio head might say, oh, you guys, you have creative freedom. You've done so well with these last 4 Bond movies that you obviously know what to do. It's all about you. Or the studio head could say, no, I will pick James Bond, and I want James Bond to be this. I want him to be brunette. I want him to be 6'2". I want him to have, whatever. And, it just something to consider anyway. So just throwing that out there, let me know what you think. So moving on here to birthdays and anniversaries. Yeah, there's not so many birthdays and anniversaries yet in the Batman universe. There are quite a lot in the James Bond universe. So I can never pronounce this name, no matter how hard I try. But let me tell you, she was one gorgeous Bond girl. She is still a beautiful lady to this day. Luciana Paluzzi. She played Fiona Volpe in Thunderball, probably the first villainess in a James Bond movie. She celebrated birthday on June 10th. Lee Tamahori. Oh, you guys are going to have... you guys might debate about this one. He was the director of Die Another Day. He celebrated a birthday, or will be celebrating a birthday on June 17th. Yeah, I cannot wait to do an episode where we just talk about Die Another Day, because that is quite an interesting Bond movie. I remember when that came out in 2002, and yeah, I was pretty excited about that, because of course, everybody will say this, that, the first Bond movie you watch, and this can also go for Batman fans, if the first movie that you watch with that actor as the main character will forever be your James Bond, they will forever be your Batman. So in this case, Pierce Brosnan will forever be the iconic James Bond to me, just because GoldenEye was my first Bond movie, and every time I see him, it's like, it's James Bond, it's him. So, of course, at the time, that's when I was really getting into James Bond movies, and I went to see Die Another Day, and I will admit, I thought that movie was one of the best Bond movies ever. I go back and watch that now, and I can pick that thing apart like a lot. And I still enjoy it, but yeah, you know what? I'll save my opinion for that another day. But I will say sometimes, all the hype can build up, and you get so excited, especially as a fan, and then you go back and revisit something after a while, and you're like, maybe it's not, and maybe I had it a little bit, I had too much anticipation for it. Maybe I didn't know any better. Who knows? So this next birthday here is one lady who definitely deserves a lot of kudos. Her name is Miss Barbara Broccoli. She celebrates a birthday on June 18th. If you don't know that name, then shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. She is the current producer of Eon Productions. She is the head of it, with her stepbrother, Michael G. Wilson. She's also the daughter of legendary filmmaker Albert R. Broccoli, who was responsible for producing all of the James Bond films with partner Harry Saltzman at the very beginning. They secured the studio and so forth, and they secured the rights from Ian Fleming, and that's where James Bond films are right now. This lady is the one behind the scenes that you hear the name. So when you're looking, next time you watch a Bond movie, and you probably didn't pay attention to this, you'll notice MGM Studios presents, or Albert R. Broccoli's Productions at Eon Productions present. They have the actor's name, whether right now we'll just say it's Daniel Craig, and then it has his name, and then it has the title of the movie, and then eventually it leads into produced by Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. Well, this is the lady. A little quick background about her. Her first official credited job on a Bond movie was back in 1983's Octopussy, in which she served as an executive assistant. She went on from there, and then she became an associate producer on the Timothy Dalton movies. And later on in 1990, what happened is Albert R. Broccoli, better known as Cubby Broccoli, he turned over the control of Eon Productions, which is the production company for all of the James Bond movies, Everything or Nothing Productions, to Barbara Broccoli and to her half-brother Michael G. Wilson. And now they've been producing all the Bond movies since GoldenEye together. This lady, like I said, she, I can't give her enough praise because of what she's done. During that time when Timothy Dalton, after, Timothy Dalton Bond movie stopped, which was 1989's License to Kill, they didn't know the direction what was going to happen with James Bond movies and whether James Bond really was going to return. So, like I said, what happened is, Cubby decided to give it over to his kids, and then what his kids did is they revamped this franchise, and look at where it is, like, over 20 years later. I mean, it's, like I said, James Bond is an iconic character, and, and whoever they decide to go with the next James Bond, obviously Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson will have the final say in this, depending on the studio, like I said, but I'm sure they will. So, a lot of credit always has to be given, and, to follow in, your father's footsteps of producing, movies with Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, and then to continue the family legacy with where they are now and, be as strong as ever. I think that deserves kudos. So happy birthday to you, ma'am. And our final birthday this week is to Mr. Sir Paul McCartney, who celebrates a birthday on June 18th. Best known for performing the main song for Live and Let Die of the same name, Live and Let Die. Real quick going on to that song. At the time when that song came out, Live and Let Die, boom, boom. Wow, that's definitely a different direction, considering all the classical elements of, say, the Sean Connery movies of, you've had your Shirley Baseys, you've had your Nancy Sinatras, you've had your Tom Jones in there, and then you go kind of into a rock, the decade, it showed how much James Bond changed in that decade, and to have more of a rock artist, a former Beatle, and have him do, you had George Harrison doing the score for that, and you have Paul McCartney doing the main song, and it's just like, wow, the Beatles, that's a really interesting choice, but that song works for that movie, and it just, it just sets the whole, tone, especially the opening credits to it, and it's a very dark kind of, you have the lady, and then all of a sudden it turns into a skull with flames. It's like, but the music, it's a great song, probably one of the, I'll say right now, and we'll go into ranking the Bond songs another time, I would say it's got to be at least in the top, I'll give it top 10 Bond songs. If I hear it on my iPod, if I hear it on the radio, I never turn it off. It's not my favorite, but I will save that for another time. Anniversaries here. Yeah, I want to make sure that we do this because this is a time of the year, and I'm looking at my calendar here, and next week's going to be really busy, but let's focus to the job on point right now. Octopussy. Yes, Octopussy was released 33 years ago on June 10th. And You Only Live Twice was released 49 years ago on June 13th. Wow, how about that? I feel pretty old right now, considering that I was born, let me just say that I was born in the mid-'80s, so I was not born when Octopussy came out, which would make me, yeah. Anyway, and obviously You Only Live Twice. I had to borrow that off my dad's VHS tape. That was the first time I watched that. Both great Bond movies. If you're a Batman movie fan, and if you've never checked out any of these Bond movies, it's okay. Go back and watch this. And I promise you, you will enjoy them. You'll love all the elements in there. I mean, it's got the gadgets, it's got the beautiful women, the beautiful locations. It has humor and lots of great action in there. Definitely something to check out. So let's move into the final segment of the week. This is the part of the show where we compare movies of the Batman or James Bond universes versus other franchises in the same wheelhouse. Yes, this is versus. So this week's versus is going to be, and I got to say, I'm really excited to talk about this. I've been excited about this for the last couple weeks because I knew it was coming up. Octopussy, which celebrated 33 years, versus Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, I'm going there. Why not? Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones movie. For those of you that haven't seen it, great movie, excellent movie. Reason I decided to go with this, first of all, both of them are celebrating anniversaries this week. So, and, it's no secret that, I've always said that James Bond is, how do I say this? James Bond influences other franchises a lot, and there's always going to be comparisons with that. The same with Batman. There's always going to be comparisons with that. So, but this one is a little bit more clear, and so it's no secret that that for a long time Indiana Jones has been compared to James Bond, and James Bond has been compared to Indiana Jones. We both know which came first. Obviously, it was James Bond. And, the interesting thing about this, and this is why I'm really excited to talk about this, is that the director of Raiders of the Lost Ark and all of the Indiana Jones movies actually almost directed a James Bond movie. And this has been, it's not a feud, but it's just always been the comparisons, that have been there. Like even the Easter eggs, some of the action scenes, there's even James Bond moments, I would say, in Raiders of the Lost Ark that are more clear than others would like to say. But so a little history here for you guys. Back in 1977, Star Wars was the big thing at the time. A New Hope had just came out. George Lucas is at the top of his game. He was the one who wrote and directed Star Wars, and he's also best friends or really good friends with Steven Spielberg. So both of the two were in Hawaii. Then all of a sudden, they're talking about all kinds of things, and the topic of James Bond movies comes up. How about this? And Spielberg confessed to Lucas that he wanted to direct a James Bond film. And, Lucas told him that he had a much better idea, in fact, of an adventure movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark. The conversation came up while the two were making a sandcastle. And after their trip, they got together and developed a script with Lawrence Kasdan, who also was responsible for helping in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens. So it gets even better than that. Okay, so this is only the start. So back in the 1970s, Roger Moore, he was obviously James Bond during that era, and he happened to bump into a young Steven Spielberg in Paris. And he commented on this, saying, "We sat and we talked. He said he would love to direct a Bond movie," Moore said. "At this time, all I knew about him was that I had seen Duel, which I thought was a superb bit of movie making, and he wasn't that known at the time." What Roger Moore ended up doing was he passed along a note to Cubby Broccoli, who in turn shot Spielberg down. Quoted, "Spielberg wanted a piece, and Cubby didn't want to give anything away," Moore said. "He didn't want to give any more points of Bond away to directors coming in." So as the years passed, Spielberg has come out and commented about this, about how he was once offered for his services to direct a James Bond movie. He commented saying, "I went to Cubby Broccoli and asked if I could do one, and he said no. I've never asked again. Instead, I made the Indiana Jones series." And There you go. Spielberg recounted the Bond story, but added why it's unlikely he'll take it on at this point, commenting, "When I first started making movies, the only franchise I cared about and wanted to be a part of was James Bond. When I started out as a TV director, my pie in the sky dream was to make a little movie that would get some notoriety, and then the late Bond series producer Cubby Broccoli would call me and ask me to direct the next James Bond picture. But I could never get Cubby Broccoli to hire me, and now, sadly, they can't afford me." So how about that? What would it be like? I mean, I know this is still Versus, but what it would have been like if Steven Spielberg would have directed a James Bond movie? Now, like I said, you go back and watch any of the Indiana Jones movies, and clearly there are lots of nods and Easter eggs to James Bond in here, but I just figured it was a really cool tidbit of news. So let's go back into the actual Versus topics now. So you have 1983, Octopussy, probably... it was a good James Bond movie. It wasn't my favorite Roger Moore James Bond movie, but I did like it had all the obvious classical Bond elements in there. You have Roger Moore looking a little older, coming to the near end of his James Bond run, but it had all the elements. Like I said, it had all the exotic locations. It had the beautiful Bond women. If you're a fan of Maud Adams, which I know a certain person who's been on this show is, she looks as gorgeous as ever. The other Bond girl in there, her name escapes me right now, but she was gorgeous. So what's going on in this story is that Russia is thinking about joining with NATO, and they're thinking about doing an agreement. You have a General Orlov, and he is, he's still kind of old school Soviet Union. He wants to, take over all of Europe, and then, he even goes as far, and this is skipping ahead here, he wants to use a nuclear weapon, and he wants to take it and blow up a U.S. Air Force base, and then, he wants to blame it on Russia, and then so forth, and he wants to kind of start a little war in there, so he can end up, being the Iron Man of Russia, if you will, and be a hero. At least that's how his psychotic personality thinks. And then you have James Bond, and where James Bond falls into this is that he's brought in to replace 009, he was on a case, and it wasn't said exactly what he was doing at the time, but that he was following some kind of jewel smuggling operation, and he was found dead with this Fabergé egg. And then what happens is that Bond comes into contact with this jewel smuggler named Octopussy. Octopussy is this mysterious, lovely lady, and he ends up having a history with her. And then, one of her henchmen ends up trying to double cross her, and then it ends up just being a whole really interesting movie about, nuclear attacks and NATO forces and all kinds of things on there. But like I said, there's a lot of it's a different Bond movie, I will say, because I don't think the enemy or the villain in this, Kamal Khan, I don't think he's so much set on world domination. I just think honestly that he's a greedy person, and you can see that clearly that he's not a Blofeld, he's not about getting revenge at all. He's just saying, okay, well, I'll help Orlov with this, and Orlov can do whatever he wants, but it's in the end for me, it's all about the money and the power in a way. So, as Sean Connery would like to say, world domination, same dream. In this case, I don't think it's about world domination for Kamal Khan, but like I said, it's a cool Bond movie, something to definitely check out. So, going in with Raiders of the Lost Ark a couple years later, well, Raiders of the Lost Ark is something... So if you're a Harrison Ford fan, then you obviously are going to love these movies to begin with. It's classic Harrison Ford, and it tells a story about this archaeologist, and his name is Indiana Jones, pretty crazy name, but he's hired by the U.S. government to find the Ark Covenant before the Nazis. Like I said, it's kind of like rewriting history. It has all the history elements on there. It's taking the place, during World War II when the Nazis are, and Hitler are doing what they did. And, Indiana Jones is kind of like this fish out of water. He kind of just falls into this. He is like an adventurer. He carries a whip. He wears this hat. And yes, he does carry a gun. And he's very much like James Bond. He travels to all different locations, but he's not a secret agent. He's just like this archaeologist, but he might as well be... You could see this kind of a story being, James Bond falling into this, but at the same time, Indiana Jones is trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, and, he has his friends helping him out and so forth. And like I said, he has the Bond moments in there, great action sequences in there. The opening sequence isn't quite like a Bond opening sequence, but in the sense that, the whole movie, just a guy with a gun traveling around and trying to fight off these villains and so forth. I still say it's a lot of James Bond elements in there, but let me know what you think about this. This is obviously classic 80s movies in general. I think at this time, looking from a James Bond perspective, I think that this is the time where James Bond he wasn't forgotten, but I will say that, maybe not as big. There were so many different characters that were coming out. You have a whole new take on a character, or just a new character called Indiana Jones. And he's bringing elements that were there of a James Bond movie, but he's bringing on different takes, and that's exactly what Spielberg wanted to do. Where James Bond, he's he's still doing his same thing, and that's not a knock on James Bond movies. It's just that it's inevitable that sometimes the franchise has to change things up. I think this was kind of like, it was getting kind of clear that James Bond has competition out there, whether it's going to be Batman in the 5 years later, Batman 1989, Michael Keaton, or it's going to be Indiana Jones, or it's going to be Die Hard movies or Lethal Weapons, whatever else. And action movies were changing, and James Bond had to change with the times. But let me know what you think about this. What movie did you like better? I know it's going to be a really interesting choice here. Octopussy versus Raid Lost Ark. Some will say that they have nothing in comparison. That's cool. I say that they do, and honestly, I don't know. I don't have to tell you what my pick is. No, I do. I will, just for the sake of it. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the better movie, but I still do like Octopussy. I think, if anything, this might help. I think that Raiders of the Lost Ark we could say that it almost did kind of, it did help Bond improve for the better, because I think the producers at the time, or writers, whomever, realized, okay, like I said, we have competition out there. We need to step it up a notch. And I think, honestly, it wasn't up until GoldenEye when they really were able to take it up a notch. But that's another conversation for another day. So that about wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Please subscribe on iTunes and/or Spreaker. Please make sure that you rate this show and leave me a comment. Remember, 5 stars. 5 stars, leave me a nice little smiley face on there. Just let me know how you like the show, and spread the word. Share this show with all of your friends and family. If you're at your friend's computer, I want you to do this. I want you to go in, open up a website, Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, whatever. Type in the Batman vs. James Bond show, so you can make sure that they see that. And tweet me that picture, and I will post that on Instagram. Also, like I said about Instagram, send me your pictures from Comic-Cons. If you're visiting any Comic-Cons and you got a picture with a character, or you're dressing up yourself, I'd love to post it on the Instagram, so do that. Follow me on Twitter at Batman vs. Bond, also on Instagram. Like me on the Batman vs. James Bond Facebook page. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, please direct message me and we can set something up. Like James Bond, I will return. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, peace out and have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.